Have you ever felt like the more fitness content you consume, the less confident you are about what you actually should do? If you're tracking everything, following the right people, but you still can't quite crack the code on your own body, if you wonder whether all these apps and AI tools are helping or adding more noise, this episode is for you. Today, I am talking with Adam Schafer, co-founder of Mind Pump, and we're going to discuss a raw fitness truth. Having access to unlimited information, like this podcast, doesn't automatically lead to results. In fact, it often makes things harder. Adam's going to walk us through how he filters signal from the noise, where technology genuinely serves lifters versus where it falls short, and the core principles that he's never wavered on despite building a massive fitness media empire. You'll learn how to build your own decision-making framework, how to experiment intelligently without falling into dogma, and what the future of fitness might look like. Welcome to Wits and Weights, the show that helps you build a strong, healthy physique using evidence, engineering, and efficiency. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and today we're talking about how to make sense of all the fitness information out there in an age where more content doesn't necessarily mean better results. My guest is the Adam Schafer, co-founder and co-host of Mind Pump, which has become one of the world's leading fitness podcasts, scaling it into a platform that reaches millions of lifters every month. It's definitely in my feed, probably in yours. If not, go and hit follow right now. Adam has a pro card in men's physique bodybuilding and has managed some of the largest health clubs in the Bay Area. And if you listen to Mind Pump like I do, you'll know he's big on building sustainable habits while staying open to experimentation. He's someone who can tell you exactly what has not changed in effective training over the past decade or two, while also sharing what he's currently experimenting with himself. Right now, I see that we're at this inflection point where AI, algorithms, influencer culture, social media are heavily reshaping how people make their fitness decisions. So I think Adam's a perfect guy to help us make sense of it all. And today, you are going to learn how to develop your own framework to evaluate all this information, where technology can be helpful versus where human connection still matters the most, and some non-negotiables that Adam has maintained while building one of the most trusted voices in fitness. Adam, it is really awesome to have you here on Wits and Weights. I want to welcome you to the show.
Appreciate that, man. Totally honored. Love the intro, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. So before we started recording, you and I were talking about Jamie Selzer, who was on the show, right? And he wanted to say, first of all, that hello, and you've been a huge supporter in his process, and you're one of the nicest guys he's met along the way. Just want to put that out there. So shout out to you, Jamie. Now,
so cool.
Yeah. Now, Jamie is, he found both of us through podcasts. So he obviously listens to a lot of different shows, found people he trusted, applied the knowledge, built consistency, got the results. Everyone who's listening right now, the listener listening, I know that's what you're trying to do. But I also know that you have access to more information now than any generation in history. And so why, Adam, this is a question for you. Why are people having so much trouble putting all that wonderful knowledge to use and doing it consistently?
Yeah, we're in an interesting time right now where, the amount of information in our phone and access with AI, it's unbelievable. I don't know how much you've gotten familiar with ChatGPT and just how amazing of a tool that is and how fast you can get really good answers. The problem with that is that there's so much information on the internet that how you prompt it really dictates what it spits out. And so it's funny you bring this up because I was literally just talking with my brother-in-law maybe 3-4 days ago, and I was venting to the guys. I talked to my brother-in-law the night before I come into work, and I go, man, I said, really interesting thing happened to me last night with my brother-in-law. I said, he's going through a bunch of stuff right now in his life. And, he's texting me that he was Googling TRT that he had started about a year and a half ago or whatever. And he's listing all these things. He's like, and he's blaming TRT, and I chat, and he sends me a screenshot of what ChatGPT had sent back to him. And I tell my buddies, I'm like, man, this is crazy. I said, this is my brother-in-law who's been in my family for 20 years, very aware of the business. In fact, his wife works for the company. So very, very familiar with what I do, the content that I have, knows that I've had some of the most world-renowned doctors and hormone specialists on my shows, been on TRT for 20 years myself, trained hundreds, maybe thousands of people on it. I have a whole entire forum with a doctor dedicated to hormones. So you would think that he'd go directly to a source like that, right, with that kind of
Sure.
access and experience, and just go, "Hey, bro," and ask me the question. But instead, he went to ChatGPT, and then what it spit out to him was kind of alarming to me. And I said, "No, bro." I said, I don't agree with that." I said, if you and what I think he did was he prompted it like this, where he said, "What are all the negative, worst things could happen with taking TRT?" And so it spit off a list because he prompted that way. And I said, "Well, what if you were to have prompted it, what are all the negative effects of having low testosterone as a 45, 50-year-old or 60-year-old man? And watch what it spits off to you." I said, "It's going to send you a bunch of alarming stuff too." But it was a really interesting moment. It just happened to me. And I was telling the guys, I'm like, we're entering this time where here I have somebody close to me who has access to someone like me who's got real world experience for a very long time with some of the brightest minds in the world in that topic. And he went straight to ChatGPT for whatever reason. And because of the way he's prompting it, he got kind of a bit of a confirmation bias to what he was already kind of thinking because of the way he prompted it. And it just kind of hit me like, man, this is going to be a problem. Because I would say that I was one of the people that really got excited about ChatGPT. Like, man, this is awesome. What a brilliant tool. This is going to be mostly all positive things. But now I start to see where, like, oh, this could be a problem. And I've heard some crazy stories of, I think just recently the news hit where the kid basically committed suicide. And it was because of and then they had the whole log of the
Yeah.
conversation that he was having with AI. And it kind of confirmed his bias on that, hey, his life is worth nothing. He shouldn't be in this world. Don't bother crying out to anybody, and basically handle it yourself. And kid takes his life. And so, yeah, it's a bit alarming where we're going and that we're already adopting it that fast.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. Like there was a South Park episode recently called Sycophancy about that exact topic where the husband was like not even wanting to talk to his wife and was going to ChatGPT to ask all the questions, and it would just kept telling him what he wanted to hear. And I've seen that too. Like you, I love to play around with these things. I was using a different AI the other day to kind of brainstorm business ideas. And someone said, "Hey, train your AI to tell it to be honest with you and not do that." And I tried it out and I was like, oh, it actually started giving me like this brutal feedback. And I can see why people don't want to hear that, because it said, "Philip, you're still trying to do this. You're being emotional about it. You're trying to do this. Here's what you want to do instead." I'm like, oh shit, this is interesting.
Yeah.
It's
So
crazy.
the way you prompt this thing, it's going to be really, really important. And I imagine that a lot of the conversations, a lot of the education for the kids and the generation coming up will probably be around that, because this is the stuff that we're starting to see unfold. I just thought it was so wild because it was so closely connected to me, and something like that, like, man, I don't know if I would do that still. Like, and now I had to ask myself, like, if I have direct access to somebody who I have a lot of respect for in a field, I still think I would go to that doctor or would go to that professional before I got onto ChatGPT, because I think, and maybe that's because of my own experience of just in the fitness world. I believe that there's a level of importance when it comes to book knowledge, science, and what we've learned from studies, and then there's a lot of value that comes from just pure application, real world people, and the variables that come with that. Because science has done incredible things for us to steer us in many great directions. And you can look up a damn near study for anything to get some idea of what maybe you should or shouldn't do. But the human element changes that always. And for every great science study that I've seen and great rule that I've been told, I've seen the opposite. I've seen it not play out that way. And so because of that, I'm always a little cautious of, oh, just because the research says this is the best option, it doesn't mean it's going to work 100% of the time. In fact, we don't have hardly any studies at all that are like that, where we could replicate it 100 times over and it always gets the same outcome. And so because of that, you have to keep in mind that, this answer, this AI tool is giving you isn't an end all be all. It could possibly help us in the right direction. But yeah, so I don't know. I caution people because of that. And I think we're in this interesting time when there's just so much information that even a young kid could get all the information that a PhD and 20 years experience of training could get at least all the books and the stuff that's put on the internet in regards to that in the access of their hand. But what you do with that, how you prompt that, it's going to really matter. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think we're going to get dumber. I mean,
Yeah.
another example of this, we talk about this on the show. I'm guilty of this. When I was a kid, I was, driving at 16, and this was before pre-navigation. So I'm dating myself a bit here, and that didn't exist. And I remember I lived in a lot of different towns and homes growing up. Prided myself on the ability to go somewhere one time and I could go back again, no problem, no directions. I just had a kind of a photographic memory. I had the tree to the left, the red house on the right, the blue door 2 blocks down. Yeah, I could get there, no problem. And then also memorized every friend's phone number that I had. I didn't have to write any of that down. I just knew them all. Still remember friends' numbers from 12, 13 years old. Yet I don't know my wife's phone number, and I can't get from my house to work that I've driven for 10 years without putting my navigation. So I have, even things like that, I've outsourced those skills so much that I've lost them completely. Now, it's probably not the end of the world that I'm not the best navigation worker, because we all have navigation on our phone. It's pretty simple. It's not that big of a deal that I don't have all my friends and my wife's phone numbers memorized, because we've all got those phone books built into our pockets now. So maybe not that big of a deal, but I think we got to be careful on how much of these skills that we outsource to this AI tool. And I think this thing is so powerful. Like, it's not just one thing. It's not just navigation that it's outsourcing. It's outsourcing critical thinking for so many things. So I don't think we've ever seen any technology like this come into play. And so, yeah, I'd really caution a lot of people that are using it to navigate them through nutrition and exercise and the end all be all. I still think getting a hold of somebody who's been training people and in the fitness space for a really long time is going to be a better option than the internet as a end all be all.
And what's cool about it is, like, when you think of podcasts like yours, where you do the QA, right? The listener questions, you're effectively doing that. You're answering very specific contextual questions. And if you guys listen to enough of that, you can start to learn to think about those for yourself, and then just reach out to these guys you follow and trust, like Adam, like me, like anybody. Just send them a note, because that's going to be probably a more accurate response. And they're not always going to hopefully just try to sell you on a program, right? You don't have to follow those guys who are just immediately like, here's my product, here's my paywall. It's funny you mentioned, like, was it your brother not coming to you or
yeah, it's my brother-in-law.
Yeah, right. And I don't know if it's partly because I've seen a change in generations, as well as since the pandemic, of people not wanting to just like reach out to people. Maybe they're kind of nervous to do that for whatever reason, even if it's your own brother. But also, I've talked to my own clients who've said, I looked up on ChatGPT, I said, what would Philip say about this? And I bet they do that about you, Adam, a lot. I bet there's what would Mind Pump say about this? And it's like, you can't even trust that, because it'll spit out something. And I'm like, nah, 80% of that is wrong. So it just cobbles together, what it thinks. So, all right, then. So that's good advice about the AI side of things. What about just in general? Like, you guys cover a lot of trends and info that's constantly coming up practically every day, because you publish your episodes every day. How do you even decide, should I pay attention to this or talk about it, or like what people care about and need to know about? You know what I mean? Like, it's current event in fitness, so to speak.
I mean, I think that the positive side for us as content creators is it provides endless content for us to talk about. I think rarely ever do we not cover it. Like, I think that if there's something new, a new trend, a new modality, a new tool, a new exercise somebody's doing, we tend to talk about it. I think it's good conversation for us to discuss it. But then at the end of the day, I think we always go back to things that we've known for 100 years around training. And I mean, in fact, we did an episode the other day. I don't know, it was maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. We were sitting down. We're like, if someone said you could only do 6 to 8 exercises, what would the 6 to 8 be? Could we put together something that they could do just those 6 to 8 exercises for the rest of their life? And could we build a good physique and bulletproof their joints? And we wrote something down, and in there with all the basic movements. It was the overhead press, it was the squat, it was the deadlift, it was a row, there was a rotational movement like a windmill in there. There was and then like a full sit up. So. I mean, we basically went, okay, multiplanar exercise, some sort of rotational, right? Some sort of ab exercise, and then the big 4 lifts. And if you did those movements for the rest of your life, and only those movements, you could build an incredibly fit looking and moving physique forever. And yet we have so many different exercises and so many different ways to organize them and debate over what's better for hypertrophy and what's better for this. And I just think that we've overcomplicated a lot of that. And I think we try, and we don't just dismiss people, I think, that are asking that or talking about that. I think what we really try to do is distill it down to what makes this new thing good, or what is interesting about this new thing, but then reminding people that, aside from the novelty of this exercise, it doesn't trump these movements that we've known about for a really long time. Get good at those movements, and it will serve you far more than this new thing or new modality or new technique or new study that just came out and said, oh, this burns more body fat. So, yeah, I think that's the core of the show has been, here's all these neat things that we're always learning about and we're watching, but there's some really fundamental things that we've known for a really long time that if you stick to those basics and you master those, you'll be far better off than, figuring out a million other, I mean, it's the Bruce Lee quote, right? Master one punch. I fear the man who's done one punch a million times than a man who knows a million different punches. It's just like, it's the same thing. It's like nail those 4 or 5 things down, really get good at them, because it takes time. Like, I mean, I've been squatting for 20 something years. I still don't consider myself a perfect or a great squatter. So it's like, it's a movement and that you have a very long window to get really good at. And what's great about that it's challenging, is that it provides a lot of novel stimulus to you and a lot of opportunity to get gains from it, versus something that's very basic and simple, a machine or a new tool that came out. That's, oh, okay, cool. This is a great novel stimulus. Get some cool benefit from it, but then what? Then the benefits start to diminish, and then again, you're back to the core movements that are really moving the needle. So, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. That's how we talk about it. I think, but it's interesting to discuss. I mean, I've been in this space for a long time, so I enjoy the conversation around these tools, these ideas. But at the end of the day, we know what it takes to build a really healthy, strong body.
Yeah, and I think that's like the dichotomy is all these cool things at the top, and then you end up steering the conversation slowly back to the principles. And I like the way how you put it. If you realize that there are a core set of bedrock principles, and the choice space isn't that big, you can focus in and develop depth in those, treat them like the skills they are, and master them over time, which means you don't have to be hopping all over the place with different techniques and tools and the latest gadgets. And it's funny because, like, I know he's controversial, Lyle McDonald, but I recently he posted somebody said, so how do I build muscle? And he's like, you train and you do a surplus, and that's all there's ever been to it, right? Like, so, people are looking for the complicated answer, and I hear it too. Like, people are always, when you do the Q&As, you want to kind of fill up the podcast episode with some decent thoughts and content, and also keeping in mind people are new to this. To them, it is very confusing, right? Because there's what do they trust? So I guess that's a good segue to, like, all right, let's say they're listening to Mind Pump. They're hearing you guys come talk about this. They're going to hear the themes start to solidify over time. They will. You'll hear squatting mentioned. You'll hear compound lifts. You'll hear, energy balance, right? The evidence. But somebody needs to take action on that. Like, the people want, the listener right now wants to do something about it. How do they, like, get unstuck? How did they start moving the needle and take that next step?
I love that question, because I think this is the part. I mean, if there was anything controversial about Mind Pump or that we talk about, I would say it's our approach. And it's not sexy. It's not even a lot. What we've learned over decades of training so many people is you really have to meet people where they're currently at if you're going to have success with them being consistent. Sure, I could sit down, take your measurements, do your body fat, track your steps, take a metabolic test to figure out where your calories are supposed to be, and write you up the perfect diet and exercise plan that will get you jacked. I mean, I could do that. I could do that with anybody. But that's not the real art of training somebody or getting somebody to be very successful and consistent. The real art is figuring out that individual, where they're at in their life, and building something that kind of complements their life that they can do for the rest of their life. And that is so unique, because now other than just their physiology, now the psychology is being played into this equation. And that part is a massive part. Because if I have all those breakdowns of your numbers of what you should do, but then you look at me and you go, man, Adam, I hate going to the gym. It's awful. Every time I go, I dread it. I don't like being there. I feel insecure about the place. I feel like everyone's staring at me. I always go for a couple of weeks and then I quit after a while, or it's just, I can't believe, I can't commit to going 5 days, whatever. You're telling me all this information. And then what if my perfect plan for you includes some of these things that you're telling me you just don't like? An experienced trainer will hear that and go like, okay, I've got to find another way to move this person in the right direction. Or maybe you're telling me you're a really busy dad and you've got 3 businesses and you got 4 kids and you travel all over the place. And again, I've got all your physiology down and I know the macros and the perfect program to get you jacked. And you're telling me you want to get jacked, but then you're also telling me you've got all these other priorities in your life and you really don't care that much about getting to the gym. And you also travel a lot. So being really consistent with your nutrition has been really difficult. So, then I have to go, okay, well, maybe he's not ready for a meal plan this constrained and this strict. It sounds like he's never even gone 2 weeks of consistently hitting his protein targets. So, I'm going to figure out this individual and then I'm going to listen to where they're at, what they've had troubles with, how they've been challenged in the past, what they really want. And then I'm going to go, okay, what are a couple things, really simple things that I can add into this person's life that doesn't completely flip it upside down? Now, granted, if they follow the exact plan that I know is perfect for them, they would get to the set goal faster. But what I understand, because I've been doing this so long, is they're not going to do it.
Do it at all.
They're not going to follow. And so, and to me, that's the real art of what we do, is the ability to know the perfect plan for this person to get to their exact goal, but then recognize that that path is different for every individual, no matter how much their physiology matches the other person that said the same exact goal. It's, oh, this individual, these are our obstacles. This is, and also their commitment level to that, and going like, okay, like I sometimes will hear somebody who has been trying to get into fitness for so long and they've never been consistent, but every time they've attempted, they get into these 4 to 5 week, 5 day week type of programs to go. And it's like, hey, and they'll tell me, all right, I'm motivated again. I'm ready. My calendar's clear. I'm gonna go do this. And they're like, I can do 5 days a week. And you'll hear me or you'll hear us on the show talk somebody out of that. No, why don't you start with 1? Let's go 1 day. And they're no, I'm ready. I'm ready to go now. And it's like, well, no, you've done that 100 times before and it hasn't worked out. Maybe we try something a little bit. Maybe we commit less to, and so that comes off a bit controversial. In fact, we've had, people critique us and say, oh, they're the podcast just for beginners, or, oh, they're the low intensity guys, or oh, they're the guys that hate on cardio and they don't want, it's like, no, is what it is that we've trained a lot of fucking people between the 3 of us for a really long time. And we understand human psychology, behavior psychology really well. And we also understand physiology, understand macros, nutrition really well, and how to marry those for most people. It doesn't mean that we get it right 100% of the time, but I'd say we're pretty good at it. And I can hear somebody tell me their goals, tell me about their history, and I can know what I think is the perfect path to get them there the fastest, but then also understand that path is probably not going to work for that person based off of the information they've told me. And so I've got to find a different way to get that outcome. And that looks different for every individual. And so I'd say that's probably the most and that's where these arguments or debates that people have online where they're debating who's more right, or my study that just came out contradicts your study and this is what the science says. And it's just like, well, that's great. I mean, I can have, for example, if the science said that waking up at 5 a.m. burned you 20% more body fat if you just exercise at 5 a.m., well, then would we all work out at 5 a.m.? We still wouldn't. Some of us hate to work out at that time. And so just because the studies say that client could burn 20% more body fat, which I know that's not true, but let's just say it was, doesn't mean that I still would tell every client to work out at 5 a.m. Because after I get to know somebody and I hear somebody tell me something like, oh yeah, I stay up till 1 a.m. every morning. I never get up before 7 o'clock, but yeah, okay, if I can burn 20% more fat, I'll get up at 5. I'm like, no, I'm not even going to do that. because I know you're not going to follow that. And even if you do follow it for a short period of time, it's not going to become a lifestyle for you. It's not going to become something you do for the rest of your life. And that's my goal. My goal is to not only get you to whatever said fitness goal you have, but it's also to make this a part of your life for the rest of your life. And that can come off, I think, controversial sometimes, because sometimes the decisions that we make with callers or when we help people flies in the face of the science sometimes. And boy, science guys just don't like that. That they just chomp at the bit to try and tear that apart or talk shit about that. But it's just like, but that always tells me when someone critiques what maybe we say about exercise or nutrition or cardio or walking or whatever the commentary is, that they probably have a lot of book knowledge, but they haven't probably trained a lot of real people in real life. And fortunately for us, we've got both. We've got a lot of studies, a lot of science, a lot of national certifications, and then we've trained a lot of people for a very long time. And the combination of that has, forced my hand to not always go in the direction of what the research tells me. Sometimes my heart, my mind, and what I'm hearing tells me something else. It says, hey, I know what the science says I should do right here, but I'm listening to this person and I know what the behavioral psychology is around what this person saying. I'm going to go this direction because I think that's the best. Learning to discern from that. And if you're a listener right now and you're interested in like finding good advice, like you're looking for somebody that has that. You're looking for somebody who has got not only the science, and so they can communicate the questions that you have around physiology and nutrition and exercise science, but then also tell you, but this is what I've seen work really well with a lot of my clients, or I've trained a lot of people just like you, and this works really well. Like you want to hear a blend of both of those, I think, to get yourself a really good coach or a really good guide in your journey. And I think that's going to trump these AI bots and tools that we're going to have. And I don't think because everybody has the answer and the knowledge in their hand, we're going to have all of a sudden way fitter people. Because
Mhm.
I don't think it's a lack of knowledge that has kept all these people from getting in shape. I think it has more to do with the behavioral psychology side. Is that people have a lot of insecurities that a lot of people are exercising because they hate their body. They're exercising, working out because they don't like the way they look. And if you work out because you resent yourself, that'll never last. That'll even if it's a motivator in a short period of time to maybe get you to lose a few pounds, or you can muscle your way through it for a season to get in shape. But you're not going to make it a part of your life if you're doing it because you don't love yourself, because you resent the way you look, or you're insecure. And until you fix those psychological things, those hurdles that you have, you're going to be on the hamster wheel of gaining weight, gaining weight, losing weight, or being in shape, falling out of shape, being in shape, falling out of shape. And we just know that from training so many people that you got to get to the bottom of both.
Yeah, and if you're listening, like the wisdom Adam's sharing is gold, because I've only been in the coaching space about 5 years, and it only took a few months before I realized this is not about information at all, like you suggested. There's the classic quote, "I know what to do, I'm just not doing it." And you realize, well, it's not, the problem isn't that, it's the psychology. And that begs the question, like, shouldn't psychology be the foundational science and not nutrition physiology, for example, because that's just nuts and bolts
I
like gravity, like
I tell you
yeah.
what, whenever I meet a trainer, of course, obviously we've met a lot of trainers that listen to the show and so like that, and they have a psychology background. I always encourage them, go down. You're going to be great, because I got into that later, not realizing what an
Mhm.
important. So it wasn't like somebody told me go learn read. Like I got into reading behavioral psychology books in my mid 20s out of a necessity of realizing, like, man, I'm starting to pick up that a lot of my job is, I feel like a kind of a counselor.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
lot of these conversations I'm having with people is a lot less to do with the X's and O's about nutrition and exercise, and a lot more about what's going on in their head. I'm like, I'm not really qualified for this. And so that's what really sent me down the path. And so when I meet somebody who's just getting into training, or maybe they had a background in psychology, I always go, oh man, you'll probably make a great trainer, because so much of our job is getting down to a lot of these behaviors that drive us. Because you can know what foods are right for you to eat, but if you have past traumas and behaviors built around these poor decisions that you've been making forever. Just because somebody tells you you can only eat these foods for the next 6 weeks, and maybe you could adhere to that for 6 weeks, doesn't mean you fixed the root cause of what drove you to those behaviors in the first place. And they'll rear their heads, and you'll eventually go back. And this is what happens to people: is they don't address the root cause of what got them out of shape. They think it's an X's and O's thing. They
Mhm.
go hire somebody, or they search ChatGPT, get the X's and O's. Maybe you have good discipline, and so you have the ability to like white knuckle your way through the next 6 months or whatever through discipline. But then eventually that fails because you never address the root cause. And so it's like we got to get to that and how you got here first, and understand those behaviors so we can unpack them, we can work on them, and then along the way we're going to start adding some of these great tips that I know about nutrition and
Mhm.
exercise along the way, and that's the path. And so I do think that psychology, behavioral science should be a big piece of the training that trainers, and it's just not. I mean, it's
Yeah.
none of us that get a certification get taught any of that stuff, but I think it's paramount to being a good trainer.
Yeah, man, it's true. I think there are probably 4 or 5 fields that get neglected in this space. Like one of them is behavioral economics, which is a good understanding of why people make decisions, incentive, how you incentivize people. And another is positive psychology, which is a field that I got exposed to through someone else a couple of years back. But it's the idea of having separating positive and negative as two different spaces. Like a lot of people think negative is the opposite of positive, but really you can add in positive to your life and it tends to spiral up and crowd out negative. And I hear you guys talking about a lot of that yourselves, of this kind of what. Let me focus on the approach and the process and adding in, like you said, the two simple things I need, and that's going to nudge you in the right direction for you in the most low friction way, least resistance, because it's built to you for your life. And it's funny that that's controversial still, Adam. I mean, those people can pound sand, honestly, because if anything you've done, like listen, think about yourself, listener, like anything you've gotten good at, you didn't go hog wild and like 100% foot on the pedal on day one on that. Like learn a musical instrument. Oh man, you got to learn that note of C. You got to learn how to like get your reed wet. You know what I mean? It's those little things that move it forward. So if you were to say to someone listening, hey, Adam, with my experience and mind pump and everything else, most people have these 5 things that are like usually the big roadblocks for most people's lifestyle. And I know I'm asking you to generalize a little bit, and you just said it's not general, but still, there are certain things a lot of people do struggle with. What's that like short list that the listener can kind of think about intentionally and then take that step?
Well, I'll address one that I think that you kind of just pointed at right now that I think is a really important topic. The thing that's interesting about exercise science is it is so unlike anything else that we do in life. Meaning, if I read more books and work harder at that, I'm going to get more information. I'm going to be smarter. If I work harder at my job, I'm probably going to get better at my job and make more money. If I study for that thing, I'm going to have a better, like real hard, stay up late all night, 3 nights. Like I'm going to learn. It serves us a lot of times to over apply intensity towards a goal. Almost everything else you will get better at if you do it harder and more. Uh, Working out is not that way. There is an optimal amount of intensity and application towards exercise and nutrition that will garner the most results. And then there's things that you can do that will give you the opposite of your results. And so understanding that sweet spot is probably where a lot of people miss. And they tend to swing from one extreme to the other, meaning I'm in a place in my life right now where I'm too busy, I'm stressed, I'm not going to the gym, I'm not looking at my food, I don't give a shit right now, and I'm eating when I eat, I'm taking whatever, I'm not taking care of myself, and then it piles up, and then one morning we go, oh my god, or somebody says something to us, or we show up to the doctor and the doctor says you've got high blood pressure now, or your cholesterol's through the roof, or whatever, and then it scares us into or like wakes us up in that moment, goes, oh my god, I need to do something about it. And so then you go from doing nothing to, oh my God, I got to change this. And so you're like, well, the harder I go, the more I do, the faster I'm going to get to said goal. It's not true with fitness. You can absolutely over apply the intensity and do too much that will result in less results or no results. And why that's difficult is initially it doesn't look like that. So this is a really common pattern that I just described. The average person insert whatever reason got you to start the gym, but that's kind of what happens is we're so busy, we're not working out, we're not tracking food, we're not doing any of that stuff. Then all of a sudden something happens, wakes us up, and we go, or a birthday or a wedding or whatever, and we go, now we're going to go do this. And then you go from here to all the way over here instantly overnight. And what here to over here means, not only does it mean going, you weren't going to the gym at all, to now you're going 4, 5, 6 days a week. It also means you're also adding in probably cardio in some of those days or on off days. And then in addition to that, you went from eating all this crappy food to now I'm doing chicken and salad, and that's what I'm eating, or I'm doing now, or I'm doing fasting and I'm intermittent fasting all the way till 6 o'clock at night, and I'm only eating in this little 4 hour window or whatever. And so you went, and what happens when you do that is you send a signal to the body that you're training all these weights and you're doing stuff. The body goes, oh wow, we're lifting weights now. We need to adapt. We need to build. But then it goes over to the nutrition side and goes, oh, but he or she's starving me compared to what I was eating just 2 weeks ago. And there's not enough material to do anything with all this signal that I'm getting. So I'm getting this loud signal because my body's getting hammered in the gym every day. But then my nutrition doesn't align with the way I'm training. And so, yeah, I burn a bunch of calories because I'm moving, which ends up sending the wrong signal to somebody who probably wants to lose body fat or lose weight, because that's what most people motivate the majority of people to get back in the gym. So what happens is that person in the first 2 weeks sees the scale go down. Why? Well, because you reduced your calories by 1,000 to 2,000 calories a day because you went from not tracking, eating like shit, to all of a sudden salads or a small eating window. And so your calories got cut in half. You were doing no physical activity. Now you're doing activity every single day, whether that's running or all the gym or your favorite, Orange Theory type of class. So yeah, you did this with the calorie balance game. And so what does that result in? Well, you probably pulled out a bunch of water weight and you definitely burned some calories. And so the scale does this. And so you get this false signal of doing the right thing in the first 2 weeks. You go, oh, hell yeah, I'm down 10, 15 pounds already in the first 2 weeks. Let's keep it rolling. And then the next week, you see about 5 pounds more. And you're like, all right, man, I can get a little bit harder, And so then you get to like week 3 or 4, and you're starting to hit this hard plateau. And you're like, whoa, I'm not even halfway to my goal yet of where I'm trying to be, but I'm training 5 days a week. I'm eating 4 hour windows. I'm only eating this many calories. I'm kicking my ass in the gym. Where do I go from here? And this and that plays out unique and different for every individual, but it kind of looks a lot like that in a lot of different ways, as far as insert the different types of cardio, insert different types of training modalities, insert different diets, restrictions that they went to, but similar approach and similar type of results. And that lever that they pull, the eating less and just moving more, you can only pull that so many times. And so maybe somebody got longer than the 3 or 4 weeks that I said. Maybe they got to 7 or 8 weeks because they started at 3 days a week, and then they went to 4, and then they went to 5, or maybe they didn't start with running yet, and then now they've added running every single day. But that's what it looks like. And so it either happens at week 3 or it happens at week 13, but it's going to happen somewhere in those first few months where pulling just that lever doesn't result in any more weight loss, and the body adapts. The body goes, oh, okay, she's going to beat me up like this every day, make me run, and only give me salads and chicken. I'm going to learn to survive. Our bodies are incredible and resilient. And it goes, I'm going to learn to survive off of all that she's giving me and how much I'm training. And then it adapts. And then it no longer sees any more results. And this is the point where people end up going, well, fuck this. I'm training 7 days a week. I'm running. I'm barely eating everything. And I'm only 15 or 20 pounds lighter than what I was when I was eating everything I wanted, wasn't going to the gym at all. And it's very logical reason to quit. I would quit. I'd go, all this work for a little bit lighter. I mean, nobody's even really saying anything to me yet. I can barely tell that I look different or feel different. And no, I'll go back to fat me. Fat me was happier eating Doritos and sitting on the couch, and I wasn't doing all this extra activity. And it's like, it was a trade for 15 pounds. That's not worth it. And that's where they throw their hands up, or they throw even more crazy. So, which what we see when people throw more crazy stuff and more restriction and more movement is eventually a hormonal dysfunction, and then the really doing a lot of metabolic damage that we have to unpack later on. That's a really common pattern for a lot of people, is to go from one extreme to the other and then get a little bit of false hope, because initially that does move the scale down. But if we had an ability to do a real time body fat analysis on that person of what happened in those 10 to 15 pounds, what you would see is the 10 to 15 pounds they lost, half of it was muscle and half of it was fat. So from a body fat percentage, that person didn't get any healthier, and in fact might have went the opposite direction, even though the scale showed them that they dropped 15 pounds. And so this is what happens to these people, is they don't even realize that the what they thought was good results was not good results at all. In fact, they were already early signs that you're losing muscle along with this body fat, and you're not getting any healthier. All you're doing is slowing the metabolism down and getting your body to adapt. That happens to so many people when they first get inside the gym. And so understanding that, probably a second huge mistake that I see, that I think we speak to so much, is I don't think I trained a client. I mean, maybe under 5%, definitely under 5% of all the people I've ever trained. When I first do a diet assessment. And the way it looks like for me is what it used to look like when I was a young trainer was I would do what I told you before, where I figure out your physiology, your steps, your movement, your age, I have a calculation of this is your macros. And then I'd write a diet out for you to follow. It was a terrible idea. What it looks like today, or what I've been helping people for decades now looks like, is like I would tell you, I'd say, all right, Philip, here's the deal. I want you to just track what you eat for the next week to 2 weeks. 10 days typically is what I do. Don't try and impress me. What I want to do is I want to learn about you. I want to learn about your eating pattern. So if you eat a Snickers bar at lunch every day, that's pretty consistent for you, I want you to actually do that. I want you to eat how you eat, so I can see your eating patterns, and then from there I can make minor adjustments and get us moving in the right direction. What has happened when I've learned to go about this approach is I one of the things I see always is the under eating of protein, especially for somebody who's going to be strength training. So maybe they're not under eating essential protein, and so people need to understand this. There's a big difference between your RDA, your recommended daily allowance, right? So what your body just needs to survive protein, versus I want to build as much muscle as I possibly can on my body, optimal protein. Huge difference. So a lot of people get close to their essential protein, what they just need to survive and be okay. But the goal when we introduce strength training is to build muscle. It's the most protective thing that we can do for not only your joints, your heart, your metabolism. So building muscle is paramount to your long-term success. Well, if we lift weights, that's only part of the equation. That's the part that sends the signal to the body to then go build this muscle. It feels the working out is just a stress. So it feels us lifting weights, and it goes, okay, Adam's gonna make me do this thing every day. This is tough on my muscles. I need more muscle to do that. So there's the signal telling my body to build it. But then if I don't give it the nutrients, I don't give it the protein, the additional calories, not under calories, the additional calories and what I need to just maintain, it's not going to build any muscle. So all I'm doing is burning. So the movements that I'm doing become almost irrelevant and don't really get the benefits of what they should, because we're not giving it the material to build the muscle, to then protect the bones, to then speed the metabolism up, to then make fat loss much easier down the road. And so I'd say those are two of the biggest rocks or things that somebody can focus on when they're getting started, that I think we do wrong, is we go throw the whole kitchen sink at it. We undereat what the body needs to build muscle, and then we don't hit enough protein intake. The two of those tend to be the kind of the first two things that I look at with anybody, any goal. So I don't care if you're a skinny kid trying to build muscle, the borderline osteoporosis 80-year-old woman, or the obese 400-pound guy who's trying to lose 100 pounds. What I do is I focus on building muscle, doing it slowly, hitting your protein take. And I'm sure if you interviewed Jamie, this is why it works so well. From here, you have this huge overweight guy who's listening to our podcast and he's hearing this information, going like, "Okay, this is counterintuitive what I've heard, but I'm gonna do it." I mean, and look at how much weight this dude lost without ever doing any cardio. And so that would probably be the third thing that people do is the amount of cardio people do with the intentions of burning fat. When we preach that cardio is a terrible tool for fat loss, but it's been taught to us and told to us by even the medical field doctors saying, "Oh, get on the treadmill or go run because you're obese." It's like it is a terrible strategy for long-term fat loss. Short term in a quick window, and somebody might go, "Well, that's fine. I just want to do it short, and then I'll keep it off." It's like, no, that's the problem. Is if you lose fat through cardio in the short term, what that does to you metabolically makes it very difficult to keep it off because on your way of reducing the calories and increasing all the cardio to burn that, say, 10 pounds of fat, you also reduced your metabolic rate by 500 calories a day. So you can now eat 500 less than even when you started this journey, which that's even worse. And that's even harder to stay in shape. You just made it harder for yourself. So yeah, understanding that and approaching the gym a little bit different is probably the main things I'd focus on for most people, no matter what the goal.
Yeah, and I like how you brought it back to, I mean, it all comes back to the principle of, hey, this is a systematic methodical, patient process. If you want quick weight loss or quick fat loss, you can get it, but you're going to sacrifice a lot and you're going to gain the weight back and you're not going to have learned the skills that you need long term. So you've got to make that, I would argue, really great trade-off of spend the next few months doing the two things you talked about, which is first of all, tracking, or not first of all, but the second thing you mentioned was just tracking to get your baseline. A lot of people don't want to do that, right? They just want to jump in and take action. But if you're changing 10 variables at once, you have no idea what's causing what.
That's
And then
right.
you reinforce this negative feedback loop of, like you said, I lost 15 pounds. So of course what I did equals the result, and it's not the case. So, I mean, you're preaching to the choir obviously here, and hopefully people who listen to this show understand that, like, I want you to take a good 3 months, 6 months, sometimes 2 years. It's going to be the process to like slowly build that muscle and change your body composition. The cool thing is though, and Adam, you can chime in on this, you can get wins along the way. You can get this sense of internal motivation from what you're doing along the way, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah. So I think people want a win and they may
Yeah.
not even know the right win, but what is it? What are those things people then get when they do this to know that it's
So
working right? Yeah.
so let's talk about what they get, and then let's also talk about why that's difficult psychologically.
Mhm.
So what you get when you feed the body properly, you hit protein intake, you strength train properly, you apply the right amount of intensity, 2-3 times a week, full body, moderate intensity, and you hit protein, is you build muscle and you get strong. And this is really exciting. Now, what happens and why people struggle with this psychologically is because they don't see huge movement on the scale, and or maybe even the mirror, because it takes a while. When you stare at yourself in the mirror multiple times a day, it's really difficult for you to see the movement, like somebody who hasn't seen you in 2 or 3 weeks, who probably comments like, "Oh man, Philip, you look really good. You've been lifting weights." And you're like, "Really? You notice?" I felt like I haven't seen any change, because that's how we are. We're our worst critics, and we're looking at ourselves every day. So it's hard for us to see that incremental change that's happening. So you don't see a lot of change in the mirror. You don't see a lot of movement on the scale, even though you're doing really well. And so one of the things you can see, and why we tend to tell people to focus on strength as such an incredible metric, is that if you're getting stronger in the gym, it is very, very likely you are building muscle. And if you are building muscle, we know we're moving in the right direction metabolically for this long-term health journey that we've put you on. And so what you can see and feel, if, and again, this is other things to focus on, because we focus so much on the mirror and the scale, is, energy goes up, libido goes up, better sleep. You notice your skin is better, your hair feels better, your stool looks better, your mood gets better. Like, there's a lot of these other metrics that are being impacted from this feeding your body properly, strength training properly, just a few days a week, will start to garner right away. But we ignore it because we've been taught to care just about the mirror and the scale, that we go 2 weeks go by and the scale stays the same and you don't really see a difference in the mirror, and you go, I'm not seeing any results, or this trainer's terrible, fire him. When in reality, you've built some muscle, you've lost a little bit of body fat. So you say, just say hypothetically, in those 2 weeks, you built 1 pound of muscle and you lost 1 pound of fat, which means you've actually made a big dent right there. You've actually added a pound of muscle in your body. You actually burn a pound, but the scale says zero change. So you go, oh, I haven't really changed. Like, no, absolutely. You built a pound of muscle and you lost a pound of fat. That's incredible. It's a perfect place to be. And all those other markers I was talking about has probably improved. You just weren't looking at them because all you cared about was the scale and the mirror. And because that's not moving fast enough for you, you actually think you're not seeing as good of results as you're actually really seeing. And so when I get a client, especially, and here, it just goes back to how this whole conversation started with its psychology and listening to the things they're saying. If I can hear from a client how much they are married to the scale, and many times, even with a weight loss client, I will not allow them to use a scale. And a lot of times that's difficult for them because that's their way of measuring what they think is success. And I have to train them and teach them that, no, it's not. And in fact, it's been sending you the wrong message for a really long time. This is why I'm not going to let you use it. You cannot get on it. You got to throw it away. We got to get rid of it. And you got to trust me as your guide to take you through this journey. And that's really difficult for some people to do, but they have to do it. They have to move away from that because they're interpreting the information incorrectly. And I've got to get them to look at the other information that their body is already telling them. And then when I can help them make that connection. And what that used to look like when I was a personal trainer is, you see your client 2-3 times a week, you wouldn't see him a couple days between, and then they see you and you see him and you say, hey, Susan, how'd you sleep last night? How was your productivity at work? How's the libido doing? You notice a difference in your stool? You notice any difference with your hair or your skin? Like, so I'd have to be prompting and asking these questions all the time to get them thinking about it. And a lot of times when you first do that, they're like, I don't know. Well, pay attention to that. I want you, okay, now between today and when I see you on Monday, really pay attention to those things they're talking about and see if you notice a difference. And then they start looking, right? And then they go, hey, you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, I haven't had a bad bathroom experience in the last 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, that's your body is thanking you. It's your digestive system is working better and your stool is better because of your eating properly, your exercise properly. What's crazy too? I've had some really good nights of sleep and I noticed my energy through the day. I used to crash at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I've been able to have sustained energy throughout the entire day. And yeah, my sex drive is up. Oh, my husband and I are, you start hearing and you're letting them know, like, this is all these signs are signs that your body is telling you you are moving in the right direction, the right way, the fastest way, the best way. And so if we can get people to focus more on those other metrics, it would serve them in their long-term pursuit. Even if your goal is crazy goals, like you want to get shredded and get on a stage and be a bikini athlete or a bodybuilder, or you want to have 6%, like I don't have the most extreme goal, you still approach it in that manner of learning to listen to your body guide you through these decisions of making healthier choices for your body versus only the mirror and the scale, because that will steer you in the wrong direction. Because many times when I'm doing the perfect diet, the perfect training routine, the scale doesn't give me the feedback that maybe I want. A lot of times, sometimes it even goes the opposite direction a little bit because I'm holding a little bit of water. That day I'm a little inflamed. Maybe I ate something that was didn't agree with my gut, and so my body retains water. Maybe I overreached in my training a little bit, so it caused a little inflammation in the body, which then retained some water and held onto it, which then made me look a little puffy and bloated and added 1 pound more on the scale. And I go, oh my God, I'm getting fat. No, I'm not. I'm holding a little bit of water. I overtrained a little bit, or I didn't sleep so well last night, or I ate that thing that even though the calories were okay, it didn't agree with my gut, and my body got inflamed for that. And that makes me look different in the mirror. That makes my scale go up a tiny bit because I'm inflamed. And now even though I'm on a perfect routine, I'm reading those signs, thinking I'm doing the wrong thing. And then I overcorrect. And I go, oh shit, I gotta cut I got fatter. The pound went up on the scale. I need to cut my calories more, or I need to add cardio now and burn more. And then you start to and people do this all the time when they're actually doing really well and they don't interpret the signs correctly, and then they overcorrect, which is also why I think people like you and I have a job. I mean, I think that a lot of what we're talking about is easy, I think, to understand. It's hard to apply and read in real time, and I think it takes somebody with experience and professional people to kind of help somebody learn that about this. But then
Yeah,
once you like education, once you learn it and you figure it out and you understand this, it's so invaluable because you'll have this for the rest of your life. You'll go,
exactly.
oh, this light. You'll go, I get it now. I know what I need to do, and that is very empowering and life changing for most people.
Yeah, it's super empowering. I mean, you're creating a system that you've never had before. And the confidence that comes from that, I know from personal experience because I'm 44, didn't figure it out till I was like 40. And once you do, you're like, whoa, this is life changing. I mean, it's like having a financial planner or having, a professor or whatever kind of teach you the ropes and the system. And I got two really good takeaways here I want to reinforce for the listener. The first, the idea of paying attention cannot be understated because what I hear you saying, it's not just this casual listen to your body. It is more of an objective, like specific things you should be paying attention to, potentially documenting, tracking, whatever that makes sense for you, where it becomes objective. Even your biofeedback, your stool, I had my stool's gotten firmer over the week, whatever. And then combining that with like a hierarchy of the things, the metrics, a dashboard, I think of it, where you have the PRs and the strength at the top. Maybe then you have biofeedback. Maybe your blood labs are in there if you care about health or whatever. And then maybe body comps at the bottom because it's kind of measuring the lagging output of all this stuff. But then you also mentioned physique competitors, which is interesting because there's a lot of misunderstanding there. If you go through all this, you do it well, you're eating right, you're feeling great, and then you get shredded, which is going to take a fat loss phase to do that. I know you've said that some of the most insecure people you've met are, physique competitors and coaches and whatever. And so let's reconcile that thought for people that it's not like, okay, you got shredded, so you've won the game and life is over, right? You could just die the next day and you're happy.
So I was lucky to get introduced to the. And it's funny too. I'm sitting in it. This is my wife's office. So for the people that are thinking that I'm that narcissistic that I have a picture of myself, and this is not my office. I'm in my wife's office this morning, but I'm looking back at a picture of when I was competing, and I was lucky. I was introduced to that at 30 years old. So I'd already been a personal trainer for over a decade and had a lot of experience, had worked on my own insecurities around fitness and had a really good grasp of nutrition, exercise science. And so I went into it. And the whole purpose of why I got into it was it to actually build a mind pump, was to build. I didn't know what mind pump would look like at that time, but I knew I was trying to build an online e-commerce fitness business. I didn't know Sal and those guys at that time, but I knew I was moving in that direction. I had already started my YouTube channel and I had started Instagram and I was moving in that direction. And I thought, okay, maybe in my little town, I'm a very popular trainer, but to the world, I'm nobody. So how can I get known? Well, I've never competed, but I think I have the knowledge and the discipline to do it. What if I document the journey of getting shredded for people and show them how to do it? And I don't hire a coach, I don't hire a trainer, I do it all myself. So I get the credit for it, right? So people are like, oh wow, this guy knows what he's doing, right? And so that was the whole purpose of it for me, was to do that. And of course, so when I got on Instagram back in 2014, so early
Early
days
days.
when you had 10,000 followers, you were kind of a big deal. And so when I got on there, what I saw, at least from my perspective right away, was, oh, the handful of people that were really famous in this space were just these good looking people that were super ripped, that had all these professional photos taken of themselves, or they had the professional lighting, they would get a pump, and they were in a good studio. And I'm like, this doesn't really look like real life to me. Like, I know what it's like to try and get in shape, get people in shape. And this is doctored, this is, produced to look way better than what it is. I don't look like that first thing in the morning. And so my plan was, I'm going to be very authentic, transparent. I'm going to wake up first thing in the morning in my terrible lighting in my bathroom mirror and take a picture of myself, not flexing, not pumped, just this is what I look like, and then tell you what I'm doing to get in shape. And that actually got a lot of traction and a lot of attention. It grew me to over 10,000 followers back when 10,000 followers was a lot of people. And I got a lot of attention for that. And that was the reason for doing the training. It was like, oh, wow, if I just did this first transformation of getting down to 7% body fat, if I take this all the way to the competing level, maybe I'll get more attention from more people. This will help build the business. I also was a bit excited because at this point, I didn't follow bodybuilding. I didn't know much about it. I knew there was a men's physique category, which I thought my body type fit. I'm 6'3", long wingspan, small waist, very skinny kind of build. I thought, okay, I could do that. I couldn't do bodybuilding. I didn't want to take the amount of steroids I would need to take to even come close to competing with that. And so I was like, men's physique, I could probably do. And I thought, well, this will also be cool because I'll get to meet probably some of the brightest, smartest people in the world because these are the best physiques in the world. And so I was really intrigued. And I remember getting backstage my first show, I was completely shredded. I got down to like 3% body fat. In fact, I was too shredded. That was the feedback I got from the judges. It was like, oh my God, you were like bodybuilder shredded. That's not what we're back early on days. If you look at the journey of men's physique, it used to have a little bit of a board short model look more than it had like a hard like that. I was a part of that evolution of it getting really hard. And so I came in really hard and they were like, yeah, no, that's too much. And then I got backstage with all these amateurs and I'm talking to them. Now I'm a trainer for over a decade and I'm meeting these incredible bodies and I'm talking to them and I'm listening to their training protocol and I'm listening to their diet and I'm going like, that's not an ideal. And I started helping a lot of them, like, maybe do this. And because I looked so good so quick, I got a lot of respect from my peers who didn't know who I was. And I'm explaining kind of the science of like, yeah, this is probably a better approach to do diet this way, or probably, scale your exercising this way. And when you're in that much of a calorie deficit, you should probably modify the intensity here. So I'm kind of like teaching them in the background. And I'm like, wow, these amateurs really, even though their bodies look great, they really don't know what they're doing. They just have some crazy discipline to eat hardly anything and train like a monster for a year straight, And so I thought, well, maybe when I get to the national level, that's where where the smart guys are at, I made my way, I won my first show, make my way to the USA's, get backstage there, same thing. I'm like, okay, well, this has got to be the difference between professional league and just the people that don't make it there. And I win USA's, I go pro, and I get up to professional, and I find the same thing. And what I find is that these are some of the most disciplined people I've ever met in my life. So disciplined that they have gotten in shape in spite of what the science says, and in spite of a healthy relationship with exercise and nutrition. These are not the brightest, smartest, balanced, healthy people. In fact, most of them had crippling insecurities. Most of these people I was backstage with that were 3% body fat and looked better than 99.9% of the world were insecure about the way they looked and thought they were fat or their arms were too small or their chest, like they were massively insecure about the way they looked. And this is what drove them to train so hard and restrict so hard and to be so consistent for so long, is because they had these crippling insecurities about how they look. And I went, whoa, this is crazy. It was super enlightening to me that, and I'm talking all of them. This isn't like me, and I may sound like I'm overgeneralizing, and I'm sure somebody listening who competes that would argue with me that they have a health. Okay, I'll give you 5% that I was unaware of or I didn't get a chance to meet, might have had a healthy. I'm sure I wasn't the only guy who was mature and got into it and passed after he'd worked through his insecurity. So I'm sure there's a percentage that are. So I'm overgeneralizing a bit, but everybody I met and talked to, massively insecure. And I found that in the podcasting spaces, I got to meet a lot of famous people online, that some of the people that we all look up to and aspire to be like and revere as like, oh my God, the most healthiest people are some of the most unhealthy people, not from a body fat percentage, but from an internal, mentally and psychological. They were crippled and by these either traumas they had early or insecurities around body. They had body dysmorphia just from a different level. A lot of times we think body dysmorphia, and it's these people that do weird things to their body or allow themselves to get super obese. But there's, the opposite. You have these people that think they're fat when they're not, and they have to, they're orthorexics. And that's what bodybuilding was full of. And you hear more people like friends of mine, like Ben Pakulski and Phil Heath, they're coming out now talking about it. And it's become, in vogue to come forward, be authentic, share your insecurities now. But that wasn't a popular thing when I was going through it. Nobody was authentic like that. Nobody was being honest with how insecure they were about their bodies, because they were being told how amazing they were, and they were getting all this publicity and all this fame and attention for how amazing they were. So it was just feeding that ego and feeding that insecurity. And so it's a very dangerous thing that we use that as the main metric of what we think is success and what are the best, the smartest, or the brightest people in the space. Is, well, and you take me for an example. Like, I don't carry myself ripped year round at all. I have a very average body fat percentage, somewhere that hovers between 11 and 15%, 90% of the year. Every once in a while, probably once a year, I get a kick where I'm like, I'm going to get lean, and I drop down to single digits for a short period of time. But for the most part, I look like a pretty average looking guy who works out. Now, I don't look so average that you wouldn't look at me and think I've been working out for 2.5 decades, so I've definitely got some muscle on me. But I don't look impressive to my peers on Instagram. I mean, there's a lot of fitness people that look shredded year round. And I'll tell you right now, if you carry yourself shredded and buff and perfect body year round, you got something going on. You have dysfunction. You have dysfunction going on. And if you as the consumer are following that person for advice, buyer beware. That person that you think is so healthy or you admire so much because of the way they look, I'm telling you right now, from experience of hanging out with all of them, because I've been around all of them, is they are as unhealthy as you are. The difference is your body fat unhealthy. You're at 20, 30% body fat and you need to lean out a little bit. They're psychologically trauma, insecurity broken inside. And that is, they've used that to discipline them to keep their body fat a certain way for some point. And we live in a world now where these people are idolized because of a platform like Instagram or YouTube. And it's unfortunate because you have a lot of people that these people are leading. And sure, they understand macros and exercise decent, but they're leading them down a path that is probably not going to serve them. And this is super common in our space, in bodybuilding, in women's bikini, men's physique, bodybuilding, and these Instagram people that we follow that are ripped year
Yeah.
round.
And that's why I wanted to bring it up with you, because that is what a lot of people's content is coming from, And it's funny because I'm not shredded, ripped, or anything. I started in my 40s. I feel like I have good things to say and I want to help people. And I don't know if it's a benefit or not that I'm not at that level, because I don't claim to be, and like I have to lean on the way I've improved personally and help people improve, as opposed to that. But like there is a lot of messaging around the best fitness coaches are the ones that look the best, that kind of of messaging we hear. And also your message here that a poor relationship with your body that gets fed, that feeds this obsession to get shredded, just gets worse and worse once you get there. And so, having said that, if someone's listening kind of thinking that way, I know we're not going to solve everyone's like deep mental struggles on this podcast, but how do we either reframe or redirect those motivations? Like, what is the exercise or the tip to redirect that?
Sal said something on our podcast. My co-host Sal said something on the podcast that went viral a long time ago, and we made T-shirts out of it, and it's something we bring up all the time, which was chase health and aesthetics will follow. Chase aesthetics and you will most certainly lose aesthetics eventually. So you chasing health will actually lead to that body that you really want. Focusing on health. If you use all those markers that I was talking about, always trying to get better sleep, always trying to improve your libido, always working on better skin, better digestion, better stools. Like if you are using those, better strength, like if you are better stamina, you are using all those metrics as the things that you are always focused on, and you're incrementally getting a little bit better at all those over time, and they just keep getting better, 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 better. Well, when you look back after a year or 2 years of chasing that, you're going to be ripped. You're going to look amazing. You're going to have achieved that thing that's driving you. If you do anything and everything you could to achieve aesthetics, and that's all you care about, and you ignore all the other signals, then it will lead you down a path of hormone dysfunction, cortisol junkie. Like it'll cause a whole host of problems, of health problems in your life eventually. Maybe not at first, maybe taking the steroids, doing all the things will serve you initially, but over time, a lot of those things will have adverse effects and you'll eventually lose the aesthetics, even if you got them by chasing them at first. So chase health, aesthetics will follow. And I think that it's a way better guiding principle for people. And you'll get what you want. Cause I get too, I was a young kid who said, I used to say, all show, no go. All I care about is the way I look. And I used to tell people when they asked me, like, oh, what do you, I was a trainer for years, never did a PR, never cared about how much I bench press. And somebody would ask me, how much do you bench press? And I'd say some line like, listen, I've never taken my shirt off and a girl asked me how much I bench press. So all I care about is what it looks like. Does her jaw drop? Does she go, oh, he's good looking? Like, and so that's how I train. Like, so I don't care. And so I get it. I get what it's like to have that mindset of like, I don't care. I just care about how I look. But if you chase the health, you will get the look thing. You will get the body you want, and you'll do it in a way that is healthy and maintainable. So if you want that aesthetic look and you want to keep it for the rest of your life, then chase health and you'll get it. You will only get it temporarily if you chase aesthetics.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jorge, and I just kind of want to share a little bit about my experience with Wits and Weights. So I've been blown away from day one, honestly. The best thing about Wits and Weights University is that Coach Philip has everything that we need all in one place. It's easy to follow, it's easy to understand. It even gives you like an introduction course at the beginning so you can know exactly what to do. It kind of made me very conscious of my nutrition, and it's kind of set me in the right path, in the right direction. So honestly, I could not recommend it enough. One of the best things is that whenever you have any type of question, it's answered within 15-30 minutes. You feel welcome, you feel good, and like somebody's helping you. Everything you need is there. All you have to do is basically come and join us. See you there.
Long-term aesthetics are an expression of long-term health. So love it. That's perfect. And it ties exactly what we were talking about with the metrics. So pivoting just a little bit, because you personally are at the point now where I know you're experimenting with lots of things and you talk about it on the show, and I can't keep track of the whole list of things you've done, but I know you've experimented with very long fasts. I know you've experimented like strange macros, like really high fat macros or something. Like, is there any one of those that you're testing right now, or something you've learned, hey, my body responds very differently from what the science might suggest as a default, and that was what I learned through the experimentation, or something like that?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. Currently, right now, I'm not doing anything in particular, nutrition, diet. I'm very intuitive eating right now. But you're right. I've ran every popular diet you can think of. I've messed with peptides. I've messed with GLP-1s. Been on hormone therapy since I was 30 years old. There are a lot of things that I've tested, and what I've found is that there's different ways of eating. There's different ways of training that serves different versions of me, even. And so it really depends on the period of like life that I'm in at the moment. Right now, I'm in a stretch where I'm heavily focused on business and my son. So a lot of my attention outside of the actual work hours of the work is working on more work, because I'm trying to build another business and I'm scaling and we're hiring, and that requires a lot of my attention. And I have a 6-year-old son that I'm absolutely addicted to and want to be so much of his life. And so those two things tend to take a lot of priority. And so my training and diet right now look very minimalistic. I'm lucky to get 2 days of lifting in a week right now. Sometimes they're a little 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes, I mean, yesterday, all I did was I squatted 5 sets and left. That's all I did. And my diet, I'm not weighing, chasing macros. We're really good in my family about targeting whole foods. I eat a lot of meat, and I eat protein. So I do follow a lot of the things that I coach on the podcast, of like, for somebody who's trying to stay healthy and fit. And I find when I prioritize healthy foods, whole foods, and I just eat the protein first, I can play this game of telling myself, like, I have ice cream in my freezer, and that's ice cream is one of my my total kryptonite, right, to staying in shape.
Likewise.
But I find if I stick to like if I'm training 2-3 times a week, I am going after whole foods, hitting protein first, then I can enjoy a bowl of ice cream here and there a couple times a week, no problem, and enjoy that and still maintain a very healthy, fit physique, maintaining that 11 to 15% range that I'm talking about, while only training that much. And so I'm in that phase right now of very, very minimalist around my diet, very minimalist around my training, really heavy focused on my son and my business right now. But that always flips. I mean, there like just last year I did a series on YouTube where I documented me getting in really good shape again. I think I think I got all the way up to 17% body fat or something like that, which would be considered high for me at this point in my life. And documented me coming all the way down to single digits, and showed people actually how little I did to get there. So it was, I mean, I would go in 2 exercises. That's it. I just do 2 exercises, moderate intensity, and then I would, just like we talked about that we started this podcast, I would make little adjustments every week. I wouldn't go throw the whole kitchen sink at once. I wouldn't go hard, strict diet. I would talk to the camera like, all right, this week I'm just going to do these things and focus on that. And then next week I'm going to tweak this, and I just and then I showed this progression, and then I was in shape for a while. Then I was a little bit more into tracking and paying attention. So I think it's important that you find things that like, I know if I want to be on a podcast like this, I do much better in a fasted state or on a ketogenic diet. I just have better mental clarity. If I would have got up before you and had a stack of pancakes, and then I would feel a difference in my conversational skills with you. And so I'm way sharper when I eat that way. And so that's a classic example of how I'll modify something day to day based off of some of this. I don't do a lot of podcasts at 8:00 in the morning. And so if I'm going to do something like that, I'm going to pay attention to what I ate last night or what I eat in the morning. Where if I wasn't podcasting with you today, then maybe I wouldn't care. Maybe I'd get up and I'd have the normal breakfast or whatever. And so I think one of the most awesome things about playing with different diets, always using those metrics that I talked about, skin, hair, libido, all those things as like the movers, is you can start to tell like, oh, I notice when I eat this way, for example, I have a better libido and sex drive when I actually have carbs in the diet. So even though ketogenic diet and low carb serves me really well for maintaining body fat or staying kind of on the leaner side, like when I eat high fats, low carb, it's really easy to keep calories down for me. It's really easy for me to kind of stay in shape and not put body fat on. But I also notice my energy levels kind of dip and my libido kind of dips. Well, I'm married to a beautiful woman that I don't want my libido tipping. Really. So I'm going to modify that, and I'm going to introduce that. Now, maybe there's a week where her and I are in different places of the country, and I don't need a strong libido. I'm not traveling, and I just want to stay fit. And I don't want to make bad choices, so maybe I'll go ketogenic. And so, what's so fun about this journey that we're all kind of on is trying different things, and then paying attention to those metrics that we're talking about, and seeing how all of them, all the different diets, all the different ways of eating, all the different peptides, all the different supplements, all these things affect that. And knowing that I can kind of pull from each of them depending on what part of my life or phase I'm in. And I personally, and this is my opinion, that I think that's a very healthy relationship with exercise and nutrition. I don't, you probably get somebody else on this show you'll interview, and they'll be like, I work out these days, I eat this way, I train these, and it's like that. That's not me. Like, I want to be healthy, and healthy for me is typically somewhere between 11 and 15% body fat, training a few times a week to where I maintain strength. I always want to be able to deadlift north of 300 pounds, squat north of 300 pounds, bench press 200 plus pounds, and rotate, move, sit down in an ass to grass squat, play with my kid and his Legos in a squat position comfortably and not hurt. These are the metrics that I pay attention to, and I want to do as very little in the gym to maintain those. And so, and that way I can allocate that extra time to the other priorities in my life that I think fulfill me way more than being 2% more leaner or 5% stronger. Like that's it. Like if I can deadlift, squat that way, get down like that, rotate and move like that. One, I can kick most dad's asses that my son goes to school with. I can do all the things in my life that I want to. I feel healthy. I'm not going to have health problems. My blood markers can come back good, and I'm applying very little effort towards it. Like that's the ultimate goal for myself. And so, yeah, it looks different and it ebbs and flows based off of what's currently going on in my life.
Yeah, and that connects perfectly to what you started saying with the matching the initial part of the journey to someone's lifestyle. And then as you track the things, as you care about metrics that aren't weight on the scale, as you learn what works, this flexible approach means it's sustainable, right? It means that you can go with the flow of what's happening in your life, even day to day, week to week. And then I'm glad you mentioned maintenance, because obviously a lot of people are trying to get to a place, but then what's after that? And I know you guys talk on Mind Pump all the time about how much training, less training is required to maintain your muscle mass, for example, like as little as maybe an eighth or whatever the studies say. And it's a good metric to see that this isn't like chasing all out everything across the board. Fitness is your number one priority for the rest to the day you die. It's, ebbing and flowing, which is a great message of flexibility and sustainability. So yeah.
That's one of my favorite studies that I found that study while we were podcasting. So I wasn't even aware of that. And Sal brought it up, I don't know how many years ago. And I didn't know it was that little. It's if you worked out one time every 2 weeks, you could maintain your muscle. That is so little. And what I love about that study is it gave someone like me who probably earlier in my years, not probably, for certainly in my earlier years, was all or nothing. I either was on the diet, training hard, or I was off, letting myself go until I get to a certain point. Then I would be on again. Versus now, where I don't really ever have an all off or really an all on either. It's like I have moments or weeks or maybe months where a very low training volume. But what I realized, and I've been able to give myself permission, is like nothing wrong with going to the gym yesterday and just doing 5 sets of squats. Like just that, lifting that right there is going to send a signal to my body like, hey, we still need muscle in them legs. Don't lose it. And I may not hit those legs again for another week or two, but I'm okay. Like I'm not going to atrophy, go way backwards and so now that I have given myself that permission that, hey, sometimes my training looks very minimal because that's all I want to go there and do. And it's not a focus, but I can do that and I can be okay. I'm not going to be the most jacked version of me, but I also will still be able to maintain a lot of muscle and stay pretty healthy and stay pretty strong, even doing that little. And so I love that study. And I think it's so important that people realize that you're doing it more than just trying to look like the shredded version of yourself all the time. Like, and if you can get in there and do one or two things, it is absolutely better than doing nothing at all. And at least for me, and maybe people who are listening that resonate with the all or nothing type of mentality, moving away from that was a game changer for me, and allowing myself the permission to just go do a couple exercises every now and then, or maybe the diet isn't perfect, but I'll make a couple better choices than what I did the day before. That gave me a lot of freedom, and it has allowed me to stay healthier and maintain a fitter physique longer by having that attitude. And so hopefully somebody who's listening who is like me that resonates with is giving yourself that permission to do less, because it doesn't take a lot to maintain the muscle that you've built in the past.
Yeah, super important. I mean, I remember one of my fat loss phases where I was just wiped and I had so many other priorities with business and family. And I'm like, I don't have to train 4 or 5 days a week. Let me try 2. Let me try 3. Hey, now I could get extra sleep on those other 2 days. And all of a sudden you start feeling better and training better. And so it's kind of interesting. All right. So as we wrap up, man, looking ahead to the future, I'm an optimistic guy. I get the sense that you are as well. Even though we talked about the dangers of AI and all of that and social media, everything that's happening, I know you're trying to scale your business. You're always doing something. What really excites you the most right now about where this industry is heading in the future?
So I do think we're moving back to a connection. So this is also why we pivoted our business to now we actually train people, right? So we were not training clients. What we did was digital products online. It was far more scalable and we could reach millions of people that way. And so it served us for the first decade. But what we all agree and we recognize is that, and I think COVID really pushed us over that edge to realize how important human connection and interaction is to us as a species. And we've become so digital and disconnected because of technology and not to demonize it, but it's because it's done a lot of great things. I mean, the fact that you and I can be across the country and get on a Zoom call like this, or a rest stream is incredible, right? So technology is awesome. But if this was the only way I ever connected to people, which I think some people do, I think they can be really unhealthy for you. And we don't get that oxytocin until you get in the same room as another human being. And that's a very important hormone for health for us. And so I think what the future looks like optimistically is the resurgence of in-person and getting back to human connection. Again, that's why we moved to personal training in studio, having clients come in. We're going to hold more live events. So it excites me. I like that. What got me into personal training, why I loved it so much, I did not have the vision that, when I was in my 40s, I'd have the biggest health and fitness podcast in the world, and I'd sit on a mic and I'd talk about it. And that's how I would make my living. I did not think that at all. In fact, I got into it because I love people. I have a genuine passion for helping others, and I curiosity about humans, and I like people that have different ideologies and ways of living than I do, and I like connecting with those people that shatter my paradigm, and I love that. And so I'm excited that I think that the industry and our society in general is moving back to human connection and getting back to people. That's what you'll see in my business, and I think that's what we're going to see across the board. And so if you're a business operator in the fitness space, or any business for that matter, and there's opportunity for you to do things that help people connect. I don't know if you recently saw one of the viral apps that's making the news and going all over the place right now is this app. It's like you remember, I think Wags is the dog app where you could look for a person to walk your dog for a fee. There's a human walking app that has become super popular now. So people are getting onto an app, looking up people that they can pay to walk with them as a service in a business. I think it's hilarious. I don't have a dog in the fight if I think it's bad or good. But what I think more importantly, what it highlights is how thirsty we are for human connection, that an app like that would go viral and people would sign up for it right away because we want that. We crave that. We've been deprived it, I think, a bit in the last 5 years, maybe even 8, 10. And I think that is the future. I think moving back to that, we've gone so digital, and all these great things have complemented our businesses. But I think the future in fitness, the future in this business is getting back to getting in front of people in real life.
Human connection. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that app. I know there's the apps in Japan that let you like hire a family member, for a funeral or something like that. But I hadn't heard of the walking one. It's funny, for a guy like you who has this, big business, and like you talk scaling and you talk about the MAPS products all the time, to say that obviously is very powerful, right? Because people are always thinking as entrepreneurs, okay, we need to reach as many people as we can, but then you lose that. So if you have any live events, I would love to come to one of those. I'm curious to hear when you guys start announcing something like that. But we want to hook people up with you and Mind Pump and everything you guys are doing. So where do you want them to reach you? Obviously, they're gonna hit up Mind Pump. I'm gonna throw that in the show notes. You go to witsandweights.com/mindpump, get access to all the MAPS products, which we just said probably go really well when you have human connection tied to it, which, where else do you want people to reach out to you, Adam?
Yeah. I tell everybody, if it's the first time you've ever heard me, don't go buy anything from me. Go consume all the free content that we've created on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. You could literally Google Mind Pump Media, and everything you see connected to that is us and the stuff and the content that we've created. We have a website called mindpumpfree.com, which is a ton of free guides to help people that you can download for absolutely free. Then we actually have an AI tool called askmindpump.com, where we built an AI tool probably 4 years ago, and it's incredible. So if you have literally any question related to health, fitness, hormones, anything related to your health journey, you could literally go to askmindpump.com, pose the question to us, and you'll get an answer from one of us hosts. And then you'll also get links to show notes and content that we've created around that specific topic. So incredible tool. Go use all the free stuff, enjoy it, and then hopefully become a listener.
All right, we'll throw all that in the show notes, Adam. And this has been a pleasure. I've been following you for years, and it was great that we could connect. And you can come on Wits and Weights and share all of your wisdom with my audience, listeners. Reach out to Adam, say hello, check out Mind Pump. And thanks again, man, for taking the time to come on the show.
Appreciate it, Phil. Thank you, bro.